Hey everyone, and welcome to my craft room. My name's Julianne Richards, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in southern Tasmania. First of all, thank you for joining in today, and thank you for purchasing my August Fun Fold or Sentiment Only class. As you hopefully know, with my Sentiment Only classes, I send you the kits for 3 cards, and basically all you need to add to those kits to produce these cards is your own sentiments and adhesives, so foam squares, dimensionals, glue, that sort of thing, plus your own your own sentiments and ink, and basically everything else you need is in the little packs, which is it's a lovely way to make some interesting cards and not need to buy specific sets or bundles or anything like that. So anyway, thanks for joining me. If you're watching this video after and you'd like to get involved in these classes and you live in Australia, please reach out via either YouTube or Facebook. Just email me or send me a message, and I will pop you on my list for an upcoming class. I do one of these per month, and I also do a product-based class as well, which actually focuses on a specific stamp set or bundle. But this is my Fun Fold class, as we have just mentioned. So we've got 3 cards this month, and they're sort of all a little bit different, and all got a quite different sort of style about them. This one is what we would call a reverse gate fold. Like a gate is that way. If you turn it around, you get a reverse gate fold, and it's got some lovely butterflies in there. This one uses the new hybrid embossing folder from Stampin' Up!, and it's got some beautiful bright pink and orange sort of beautiful flowers on there, which is lovely as well. And this one is a cascading Z, which you can tell cascades down from high at the back to low at the front. And obviously it's got a bit of a Z thing happening there. And we've got a cute little butterfly on some acetate. It looks like he's sort of hovering above the card there a little bit as well. So there are our 3 cards. This is what your packs are going to look like. Apologies for some of the lighting here. We're coming to the end of the day. I've left this a little bit late, but I really wanted to get these packs in the mail tomorrow, so I thought I'd better get these videos done today. But hopefully the light won't be too bad and you'll be able to see. Not that they're very difficult. You should be able to sort of follow along pretty easily. Okay, so we might start with our beautiful reverse gate butterflies here, this is the pack. All pretty simple. It's just a lot of gluing and positioning. So in your kit, you've got an envelope. I don't know why I gave myself an envelope, but anyway, there's an envelope there. You've got a little sentiment box from the Stitched So Sweetly die set. You've got some butterflies, which are from the Brilliant Wings dies, some champagne gold rhinestones. The main colour here is pale papaya, and the highlight colour is pear pizzazz, and you've got obviously some panels there to fit that way. This paper is the absolutely to die for expressions in ink paper. It's just absolutely lovely. I love the colours and I love the bling, and it's got some nice reverses as well. Choice you have to make with this one is whether, obviously this front one, you use the beautiful flowers on the front to highlight that. You've got to choose for yourself before you start or as you go whether you want these side panels also in the flowers, or you want to flip it over like I have in my original one and have the green showing forward just for a bit of a highlight. I've actually put the green in my original card. As you can see, the green is on either side. And this one I will do it with the flowers showing, just so you've got a bit of a comparison to make for yourself, so you can decide which way you want to go. You've got a white panel for the inside back, and basically that's where you would write your personal message on the back, and that's about it. So basically there's not much to this one. You just grab some ink, or some glue or snail, whatever's your adhesive of choice. You just start layering it up. So you've got your designer series paper, the large one, basically pops onto the layer of, and this is the ink that's going to have to chuck that one out. That's the one that keeps dying on me. I can feel it's got glue in there. It just won't come out. I need to put a pin down there. Okay, so let's do it. So we've got just glue or snail or whatever on the back of your designer series paper. Pop it onto the larger panel, the larger mat of Pear Pizzazz. It's a lovely pale green, matches the leaves in this designer series paper. And that's the great thing with Stampin' Up. All the colours match, so you don't have to think too much if you're a bit of a colour novice like me, or have a bit of a challenge with matching things. My husband tells me he actually believes I'm colourblind, which is probably not far from the truth, given some of my designer renovating choices in the past. Okay, so this central one, basically you're going to have your front panel is this one that sort of sits up, looks a bit like a picnic table, doesn't it? But anyway, the top of the picnic table is where this one will go. So as I said, the card base is pale papaya, and it's one of our new in colours this year, and it's absolutely wonderful. I've been through about 3 packets already, and I've just ordered another one. So that one goes on the front there. Then, as I say, you can choose whether on either side, whether you want to have also your flowers and blue and leaves pointing upwards, or you can flip it and have the green. The reason I did the green on the other one is because I sort of liked the framing of the centre with the green. It sort of highlighted the centre more. But a couple of people who saw the design after I'd finished said that they would have preferred the lighter side up. So let's do the blooms up on this one, and then we can compare. So again, onto the Pear Pizzazz. There we are. And then onto the card base. Glue on my finger. Here we are. That's our first little side part, and that sort of helps our card stand up when it's on display, like that. Okay, and on our other side. Just like that. And onto the left-hand side. Okay, so you've got a fairly large border between the pale papaya and the Pear Pizzazz, and a smaller border between the Pear Pizzazz and the designer series paper. Okay, so that's with the blooms on both sides there. I quite like that. That's nice. Don't not like it. And there we are with the green on the outside. So as I say, you guys can choose your little card, which combo you go for. Okay, so this, you've got a panel of Whisper Basic White, and that's just, as I say, to sneak in the back there. You can stamp that with flowers or leave it plain, or put a little follow-up sentiment or something in there, depending on what sentiment you're planning on using at the front. That's just there. Okay, because otherwise there's nowhere else to write on this one. Okay, so there we are. Right, not much to her now. Basically, you're going to bring in your sentiment box and your little butterflies. We've got 3 butterflies. There should be a large one and a smallish one. Not that he's much smaller than this one. And then sort of this medium-sized one. So try to choose where you want them to go. Only tip I have there is once you close the card, make sure your butterflies haven't gone too far over the edge, because you won't get it into the envelope if they're too far off the left or right. Okay, so I might glue those little guys down. When I do these butterflies, I only put glue on their little bodies, on their center part there. just because I like their little wings to look free. And I will actually, when they're dry, curl them up a little bit to make that extra effect. I'm going to have one little guy over to the left, so he's going to sit there with the sentiment box. I'll take him up a little bit. Position them first because they will take over most of the space that you've got. So you don't want to glue them down first and realise then you've got them too close together or too far apart. Okay, little guy there. So I will stamp the sentiment now. I'm just going to use the happy birthday out of, or I might use the thank you for this one because I've used the happy birthday in the first one. I might use the thank you out of, this is the pansy patch set, which had some lovely little sentiments in there. So I'll just grab the thank you, just so I've got something a bit different. I can use it as a customer card further down the track. Don't have that many people in my life to need that many birthday cards. So, but I'm always thanking my wonderful customers. I'm just going to grab some black ink. Oh, excuse the crash. And I'm going to pop that on there. So our little butterfly is going to slightly overlap on the left-hand side. So I'm just going to keep the sentiment slightly to the right, not a huge amount, but just slightly to the right. There we are. That's not particularly even. That's all right. It's a little bit hard sometimes when you're coming in with a video. You can't quite see where you're coming in. Okay, so practice folding it and then you'll see how far to the right you can take that sentiment. So you want to keep it in the footprint of the card, so to speak. So I'm going to use some glue just along here and pop that between our top and bottom butterflies. There, to the right hand side. Okay, then our last little guy can just overlap a tiny bit, but not a lot. And make sure he's not too far to the left. And he can go just there. Here we are. Okay. There's our little butterflies there. Quite large butterflies, actually. Okay. Cool. So we're nearly done with that one. The only thing you need to do now is grab some of these little champagne rhinestones. You may have normal rhinestones, depending on how popular this glass is. I know I've got some more champagne ones on order, but they haven't shown up yet. Okay, so you've got 5. So just basically all I've done is just pick some little nooks and crannies and pop a dimensional in there. I mean a rhinestone, not a dimensional. That wouldn't do you any good at all. And the last one right up here at the top. There we are. Okay, so there's some really nice, I actually do like, as much as the light is a little bit of a pain, it does actually bring up those rhinestones beautifully. You can see them glinting in the light, which is nice. Okay, so that is card number 1. I think it's, yeah, I think this is actually my favourite of the class today. I really just love those colours and the little butterflies, and it's just a little bit unusual. Sort of, it looks like it's quite tall when it's standing up, and it looks like it's a pillar of or a column of butterflies sort of headed up to the sky. There you go. So that's card number 1. Hope you like that one. I'll pop that aside. Keep it in with its other buddy. Pop it over there. Okay, so let's do card number 2. Which one's card number 2? All right, we'll do our little colourful blooms one. This is one that uses the bloom hybrid folder, which is really awesome. And if you you sort of fancy the look of this, I'd suggest you grab it. It's actually a hybrid embossing folder in that you fit the die into the embossing folder, and it run it through your machine, and it cuts and embosses at the same time. So no sort of cutting plain die cuts and then running them through the embossing folder and getting, sometimes missing the spot, and sometimes, sort of having to go through twice. You can actually just do it the once and you get these really pretty blooms out. So what you've got in your set is all from the blooms die set. Just be careful there because that little guy is actually stuck. Cool. Okay, you've got this really awesome bannered sentiment box there. It's quite long. We're going to chop that down. We don't need it that long. We've got some leaves. They're sort of stylized, sort of funky leaves there. You need to take those little remains out of that. But there should be 6 of those, I think. 6. Be careful when you're taking these things out of the bag, as usual, because there are little pieces that might fall on the floor. And I'd hate to think that you haven't been able to find everything that you've got in your kit. So you've got 3 flowers each. So there's 3. So that's what actually comes out of the embossing folder when you cut it, those 3 flowers. So I run it through once in the pale papaya, again, my favourite colour, and once in magenta madness, and that's you get the 3 of those. We are actually going to use all of them. I know it looks like I've got more here, but we actually just we'll cut the ends off the ones on one side and we use them on the other side. Cut the tops off that one and use it at the bottom, just so it looks like we're using all of the bits of the flowers, even though it looks like we've got more of them on there. It's a great way of sort of getting best value for your cardstock. Okay, so and you've got a white panel for inside. So what I might do is pop that white panel inside now, just so I don't lose it. So you, of course, can pop another sentiment or a flower or whatever you want on the inside. Just leave it blank. It's up to you. Whatever stamp sets you've got handy at home, you can use. There we are. Okay, so you've just got a Night of Navy card base here, so that's what we're going to be going on. If you wanted to do this design later and you feel a little bit nervous about it, just basically get yourself a piece of the same colour as your card base, the same size, and use that first and then glue that to your card base. It's sort of a little bit of safety there for you. Okay, so just pick 2 flowers. So we just want 2, just a random design, but one of the papaya and one of the pink. And they're going to just pop straight in the middle of the card, just like that. So I'm going to glue, but I'm only going to add glue to the centre because that's really the only part of the flower that actually sort of contacts the cardstock consistently. I'm going to pop one there and I'm going to bring the other one in and I'm going to overlap it so they're together like that. Okay. So that's they stay whole. There's nothing, you don't cut these ones down, of course. They're our centre. So you're going to build everything up around those centre flowers. Okay, what we can do then is grab the others and stick to, I'm just thinking out loud what's the best way of doing it. So just pop the glue on the centre and just bring one of each sort of coming in from each corner. So I'm going to start with this pink one. And then I'll bring in another pink one. I might bring in a papaya one in the other corner. So putting your glue on the centre and then making sure that that centre is actually on your card. So as I say, there's no point putting the glue on it and then having that glue hanging over the edge of your card. There's not much point there. Okay, so we've got one there. Might bring another guy in down here. So as you can see, these ones, these first ones are basically pretty much on, they're hanging over a little bit. Not a huge amount, but they're hanging over a bit like that. But the majority of them are actually on the card, if that makes sense. This is our last one. Bring him up there. to my finger and not to the card. Too much glue on him. As I say, there you are. I've proved myself wrong. See how I've got too much glue on there and it's actually come off the card? I'll just get that off with a bit of a wipe. There we are. So that's our first, that's all of our flowers actually onto our card. Now just might let those dry a wee bit. And then we're going to grab either a guillotine or a trimmer or just a plain old pair of scissors. We're going to chop the edges off. Okay, so I'm going to grab my little guillotine. Now, scissors, if you've got a steady hand, scissors are just as good. Don't think you need any particular equipment. But I just love my little guillotine. Had it for years, well and truly before I started with Stampin' Up. Okay, so I'm just going to line up the edge of the card, and we've got the little excess bits of our flowers hanging over the end, and I will just cut. He doesn't want to cut. That's the one I made wet. I'm going to have to bring the scissors in with him because I made him a little bit wet and he's not going to cut properly. So I'll just cut him with scissors just to prove it can be done. You have to take your glasses off though. Yeah, so just trim it up close, hard with the edge. So we've got those two little bits there, and I'm going to flip it again. Might do this end here. Now be careful when you are when you're on your scored end. Don't go too close and cut your card in half, which would be very bad. And I have done it. So make sure you leave that a fair way back so you don't damage your card. Okay, it's a little bit rough there. Just trim it with my scissors. Okay, so we've got two side bits done. I'll bring that in. Now, keep all your bits. This is the golden rule of this is keep all the bits. Keep all the bits that you cut off because we will use them. Okay, so I'm going to bring in those. Yeah, keeping all my bits. The bits might be a little bit too small, those ones. That's all right. Okay, and the last edge is there. Okay, so we've got bits left over. Okay, so that's it. So as you can see now, we've cut all those edges so that the card is sort of in, so all of them stick inside the card. We've got these bits here. So what we're going to do is use these bits, excuse me while I play with my microphone. We've got a straight edge on each of them, obviously, where we've just cut them. We're going to find a spot where they go really well up against the hard edge, and we're just going to glue those down so it looks like that they are the second flower in our little bunch, sort of just tipped off the edge. It just completes the bunch or the couple. Okay, so I'm going to pop that little guy there. So some glue on the back. Put him there. So line it up, as I say, line it up with the edge of your card. Nice and straight. There we are. We have a little bit of pale papaya here. That's a little bit rough there. I'm just going to trim that off. A little bit of pale papaya here, so I'm going to match that with a piece with one of our pink flowers. Again, line it up with the edge. Looks like it was always there, meant to be there, which of course it was. Okay, here we are. We have a bit of pink here, so we'll put that with this pink flower on the bottom left-hand corner. Now you could do this with many more, you know, many more of, you know, cut many more of these flowers and do it that way and trim off, you know, have more waste. But I think this is just as good. You don't waste as much cardstock. Yeah. Okay. And I've got two pieces here. I don't know how we can, what's the best way of doing this? So it's really up to you, whatever you decide to do. You can sort of fit these things around whichever way you want. That's got an edge there. I wonder what would best there. And then maybe, I might just go that bit, I think, there. Just stick to what works. And we'll have a spare bit. Yeah. Line it up with the edge. Bit of glue. Squirts out like some toothpaste. Too much glue. There we are. Okay, so there we are. So it looks like we've got bunches of 2 flowers all the way around, but when we did it, we did actually with 6 flowers. So that's really a good way of sort of making, as I say, making it go, you know, that little bit extra distance. Now that's pretty, and I do like it, but as I say, it's often the green of the leaf that lifts a card. And here we've got some leaves. I'm just going to get all those bits out. Probably should have done it before. Anyway, doesn't take a second. They'll come out pretty easy, thankfully. So we're going to do a couple of full, obviously we're going to keep a couple of them whole, and we're going to use them, and with a bit of a trick like we did with our flowers, we'll use some halves to make it look like we've got more leaves than we do. Last one. Okay, so we might bring some, we'll just use a couple of full leaves. I'm going to just pop them in around our flowers. So we'll just pop the first 2 sort of there, and bring another couple. Because we've only put glue on the center of each of our little flowers, we can actually fit them up and under really, really easily as far as we need to. If they poke out too far, just trim their little ends off, because they do have quite long ends, these flowers. It's quite a stylized, as I mentioned, quite a stylized design. I'm going to pop 2 there. Now what I'm going to do is grab these other 2 that we've got, and I'm going to actually pop them sort of so they look like they're coming in from the edge as well, and trim them off. I'll use 2 of the skinny ones, I think. I'll glue those in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to, as I say, just pop those off the edge so it looks like they're coming in from the edge. And then I'm going to trim off their edges, and I'm going to use the other half somewhere else in the card. So just pop some glue on half. And come on there. Now I said, oh, too much glue. And then the other one, we're going to have our sentiment coming in across the middle, the lower third there. So I don't want to bother putting anything there, I'll just cover it over. This one. Okay, so we've got those 2. And I'm going to grab my scissors like we did with our flowers and just basically trim them in line with the card base. You can use trimmer, use your guillotine or scissors. Okay, so we've got those two coming in there, and with what we've got left over, I can bring the other half in over the other side. And we've got another little spare one here where we can bring him in at the top. I don't think it really needs anything up the top. I might think he might just be spare. Let's just leave him as spare so we don't really need too much. Just glue these ones down. These, and then we can do the sentiment and we're done. Okay, so I'm going to use the sentiment out of the Blooms, which is the stamp set that goes with the bundle, the Blooms stamp set. And it's just a cute little hello friend, which you can then put, you'd put happy birthday or congratulations or sympathy or thinking of you or just because or whatever you want to say to your dear friend inside. I'm going to stick to the dear friend on the outside. So as I say, this is quite a long sentiment box. We're just going to use it, long sentiment, we're just going to use it sort of coming in about 2/3 of the way there and then trim the rest. Here's the stamp set that goes with it. We'll grab out our dear friend. Hopefully we're not losing the light too badly. I'm keeping sort of half an eye on it. Dear friend, line that up, line up. Hint for when I line up these sort of delicate stamps is line up your block, which you can see through perfectly. Line it up with your grid paper, and then you can line up your stamp with the grids through there as well, and you'll know it's straight. And then just give it a bit of a test. Yep, that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to pop the sentiment towards the left-hand side of the sentiment box. Not too close because we've got plenty of space to play with. I'm just having trouble with that light. Just forgive me while I bring it a little bit closer. Get out of the light a little bit. There we are. Okay, as I say, we're going to bring it in from the the right-hand side across to the left. I'm going to pop it on some dimensionals. So just pop dimensionals on the end where you want it. Just go, we put 3 of them on, but make sure you don't go all the way to the end because as I said, we're going to chop that off before we get to the end. These dimensionals are really thick, thicker than normal. So 3 dimensionals there, they end there. So I'm going to make sure that that is inside the footprint of my card. So otherwise you're going to have dimensionals going nowhere. Yeah, straight as I can, which sometimes isn't very straight. Yep, that looks okay. Again, let's bring our scissors in and just trim that little bit off the edge like that. Okay, and there we have it. There is our card number 2. It's really nice. I quite like that. Oh, I know, we forgot something. You've got rhinestones. Again, you've got 5 rhinestones. A few more than my usual. I must have been getting generous. Just grab those and pop them. Find a nice little nook that looks like it needs some bling. Like popping my rhinestones in, like where there's a dip in the design, or like a little bay or something. Looks like a little bay on a map. You can use your 5 up. You can use less if you think that's too many, but there you go. Okay, so there we have it. There we have our card number 2. And again, lovely sort of shining rhinestones there. Okay. Cool. Card number 2. Hope you like that one. So there's my original and there's the second one. So they're slightly different, but that's the way with card making, isn't it? You're making the same card, but it looks slightly different. Okay, card number 3, before I lose the light completely, is this Cascading Z. Okay, so uses quite a lot of, deceptively, in a large amount of designer series paper, this little card. It's sort of like it's got it on the front, it's got it on the middle, and it's got it in the back. So obviously with a packet of designer series paper, you can only have so many. So some of you will have, forgive me while I just cheat with this edge of my grid papers coming up. I need to force it down. Okay, yeah, so some of you have got this, what is it? The freesia, the fresh freesia themed one, and some of you have the pale papaya with calypso coral. So both as pretty as each other. I actually sort of, after I decided I'd run out of this paper, I decided I quite like this one probably even more. I'll get that shine out of the way when I take it out of the paper. Okay, so I'm going to make one with the calypso coral, just so you've got an example of both. Now the angles on this card are quite tricky to get. So before you start, if you want to make another one before you start, probably take the measurements off the pieces of cardstock before you start, because once you start, it's very hard to to measure them afterwards. Okay, so be careful. You've got a tiny little sort of slip of acetate in the envelope, so don't lose that. That's meant to be there. That's what we're going to use to make our butterfly fly. You've got some sentiment boxes and you've got some ribbon as well, so pop those all aside. No rhinestones with this one, so if you look in the pack and you think, oh, haven't got any rhinestones, that's right, you don't. Just thought there was probably enough happening without bling as well. Okay, so you've got, to match the cascade, you've got pieces of the contrast colour. So in this case, it's Calypso Coral, and some of you will have Blackberry Bliss as well. So just make sure you got the right side up so it matches the profile of the card, and glue them down. Most of your kits, I've been pretty careful and checked that your left is right and your right is left, so there should be no mirror images. If you find that your card is facing one direction and your cardstock the other, sort of just flip the card around or make it fold the other way and it should be right. Then you've got a piece of designer series paper. So this is a really lovely plaid, which is from the poppies. This is from the Poppy Patch, or all this paper is from the Poppy Patch designer series paper, and that's cut smaller than your contrast color. So just pop that one in there like that. Okay, so then on the very back you've got the same, so you've got the plaid as well and the Calypso Coral. So if we open the card up just straight to your right, you'll find that that one fits in there. It's too long, so what I've done is I have left them all too long because I didn't want to trim them off and make them too short, if that makes sense. So yeah, so you will have to trim them, and so this is probably a good thing to learn, because if you're making this card yourself, you will need to do this to get the angles all right. Pop the card, the contrast color piece, onto your cardstock, measure it at the bottom, sort of both sides, so that you've got the same border, left, right, top, and then bottom. Grab your trimmer or your guillotine, just line up those two marks. I'm difficult with the shadows now, apologies for that, and trim them off. Okay, so then we can glue that down, and then we'll do the same with the cardstock. Wrong glue. Anyway, I hope it was the wrong glue, and this one actually works. Yes. Oh, So I put the glue on the right side. Yes. Okay. Check every time before you do something that you're working on the right side of your cardstock, because these things will have a mirror image that won't work so well. Okay, so there's that. So we do the same with our designer series paper. So this is going to have a smaller border. So it's only 1/8 of an inch smaller. So line that up. And again, mark it at the bottom. And bring in your trimmer and trim it off. And then we will glue that down as well, making sure it's the right side. Okay. Yeah, so that's that one. So we've got our front and our back ones panels done. So the next one is going to be facing the other direction. So it's facing sort of right to left. Now this one, I've got it the right size, so that's pretty good. So we're just going to glue this one straight down. So you will, if it was too long, basically again, you'd have to grab your pen or pencil or something to mark off the bottoms, but this one's right. I think these ones will mostly be right. Okay, so that one fits in there. And we've got this other side of the cardstock, which is what I'm going to use for the highlight. So it's going to have a smaller, again, going to have a smaller border. And we're going to have to trim this one down because I've given it to you as a square. Mark that with your pencil, or you just make a little indent. I haven't actually got any pencil in my pencil, I'm just making an indent. Line that up again and trim it off. Now this one's a little bit more complicated than some of the ones I've given you because you do actually have to do that little bit of trimming. But as I say, I didn't want to trim it off and make a mistake and make it too small. Things can be trimmed down, but they can't often have cardstock added back in again, unfortunately. Okay, but there we are. So that's the inside one. So we've got our 3 decorated faces there, our front facing faces, if that makes sense. There. I love those pansies on that one. It's really sweet. Okay, so that's the card base pretty much done. Oh no, I forgot the ribbon. Oh. I always do that. I always do that. Is it too late? Is it too late? I reckon it's too late. Okay, now, oh dear. The ribbon should have gone in behind that front one. I knew I was going to do it. I just knew it. I knew it. What can I do? Nothing. There is no way I can retrieve this situation, unfortunately. Gosh, I'm a duffer. Anyway, the ribbon is supposed to go on there behind that front one and be tied in a pretty bow. Okay, what I'm going to do is going to just be a bit sneaky. I'm going to just cut. So if you've done what I have just done, there's a way we can retrieve it by being a bit sneaky. I'm just going to cut the ribbon slightly larger than the front of the card. Just a little bit overhang either end. Okay, then I'm going to grab some double-sided tape. And there's 2 ways of doing this. I'm going to see which way goes best. So I'm going to grab where I roughly want the ribbon, sort of like a 1/3 of the way up. And I'm going to just pop some double-sided tape straight onto the card at that level. Easy having the little plaids because you can just line them up directly with that. I'm going to bring back the ribbon and line it up with, and thankfully with the way the ribbon is, you can't see the double-sided tape through, which is good. And just firm that down. What I'm going to do then is get a little bit cheeky, hopefully, and with a sharp implement, force that end of that ribbon into the gap. That's the plan anyway. If I'd remembered to put it on first, I wouldn't have to. I've left that slightly long. I'll trim that down a wee bit. I'll put a warning about this right at the beginning of the video, so that, or in the notes or something, so that you'll know to pop the ribbon in first. There we are. Stay in there. That's all right. That's gone in well, that end. Happy with, oh, and then it's popped out. I'm happy with that. That looks like it was there all the time. I'll trim this end a little bit as well. And then pop it in under. Just use a spatula or something and it flips under quite easy. There you go. Okay, hopefully I have remembered to put a warning at the beginning to pop the ribbon on before you pop the first layer. But anyway, that's gone in quite well. I'm quite happy with that. It could have been a lot worse. Okay, so there we've got the ribbon. Then what I'm going to do is bring in our, it's totally thrown me now, bring in our sentiment box. I'm going to stamp that with a pretty little sentiment, and it's just going to pop on that side. Then with what ribbon you've got left over, because I've used it double-sided tape, I have to force that in and under the double-sided tape as best I can. Up you go. I'm going to tie a little bow just in there. Okay, just there, and tie a little bow. Oh, traumatizing about my bows now. And the thingies come out. Might leave that out for the moment while I tie the bow and then pop it back under. Hopefully you won't having this trauma because you've put your bow in first. Put your ribbon in first. Yes, gotcha. There we are. There we are. Good. Perfect. Well, not perfect, but pretty good. Pretty good retrieval of an error. I should write myself a note whenever I'm doing videos. Remember to put the bow in first. There's our little bow. Okay, so I'm going to stamp our sentiment. Again, I'm going to use something from the Pansy Patch stamp set. It's got a cute little, what did I use on my original? The little things you do. Yeah, the little things you do. So this is a thank you card as well. The little things you do make such a big difference. Just pop it in black. You could use one of the other colours to match the cardstock if you wanted to. Pop that in the centre of the sentiment box. This sentiment box is from the, that's my favourite at the moment. What is it? I'll have to have a look and see. I can't remember now. Terrible when you can't remember your favourites. Tasteful Labels. It's from the Tasteful Labels dies. It's really lovely. It's got lots of really handy sized sentiment boxes. So again, with some dimensionals. I haven't done the other part of the decorating yet, have I? Anyway, it doesn't matter. We can get there. Here's me putting my sentiment boxes in. I haven't done the rest. So I'll pop that on there. Line it up again as you can, quite happily with the plaid design. And there's the front done. It's really sweet. I love that bow. As much as traumas that it's just caused me, I do love it. I do love the ribbon, I mean. Yeah. Okay, so now what we've got left is this is from the hand penned or the penned dies. So you've got the highlight flowers in your main card-based colour. So you've got that in either fresh fruit freesia or pale papaya. I'm just going to pop a little bit of glue. Just, you don't have to go too crazy with the glue here, just on the bits where there's enough surface to actually have it. Some of them are very, very fine. You just make a terrible mess if you try and put too much glue on there. So just around the place, line it up with the sort of silhouette die. It's got the big flower, big leaves are on the right hand side or left hand side, and the smaller leaves are on the right hand side. And just glue that down. So you've got two of those. So do the same to the other one. Okay, line that up. And glue that as well. So you see the sort of lovely contrast colour come through, but you've got the highlights of the main colour. So as you say, you've got two of those little highlight flowers. I'll just show you that a bit closer so you can see. There we are. So that's the pale papaya on the Calypso coral. What we're going to do is pop two of those. So pop the first one onto the back front facing surface or face, and then the second one on the front. So just sort of edges underneath your sentiment box a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit. A bit of wayward garden green there. Okay, so just pop some glue on the back of it, just on the lower half or lower third. Don't go too crazy, don't go too far up because you'll overlap with your glue. So just on the bottom little half, and position that on the very front. Okay, and then I'm going to make sure I did the right thing. Yep, and then the second one, just the same sort of thing, just some glue on the bottom third, and position him on the very back one. There we are, just like that. Now be careful, bring your envelope back in, make sure that you haven't gone too far up, that it'll all fit into your envelope top and bottom. So you don't want to go too far up the top, and so you can fit in your envelope when the time comes to send it off. Okay, so we've got both of those on. Oh, that's so pretty. Okay, so we need a little butterfly. So here's our little white butterfly and our little piece of clear acetate, just like that. What we're going to do is grab our butterfly and we're going to pop him onto the acetate. So you can use glue, you can use snail. I'm actually going to use a little glue dot. I can find them. Here they are. I'm just going to use a little glue dot just because it's an instant stick. I don't want to have to wait around for glue to dry at the moment because it's getting dark. I'm just going to pop a little bit of a little glue dot, make sure you can see that, little glue dot onto the acetate and position it over the underneath the butterfly. So the butterfly's good side is sticking up, if that makes sense. So that it's on behind him. So it's on behind him like that. Okay. Then find yourself somewhere on that. So we've got our flowers on the front, we've got our flowers on the back. Our little butterfly is going to hover between the two. So in that middle front facing one, the one that's plain, that's empty at the moment, our little butterfly is going to go there. So what I'm going to do is pop another glue dot, just so it's all instant, onto the front of our acetate. You can, as I say, you can use glue, you can use snail, whatever you use. Position that where I want him so he looks like he's hovering amongst the flowers, and glue that down, or just firm that down. So if you're using glue, you might have to hold it for a little while because acetate is quite slippery, so it will take a little while to stick down if you use glue. But with the glue dots, as I say, it's an instant thing. Okay, and there he is. So there's your little butterfly sort of hovering. That's a bit hard to tell now that the light's completely gone. Hovering above the flowers, and he looks like he's hovering there, especially when the card is on display. He sort of looks like he's hovering in front of the front flowers and above the bottom ones. Yeah, so it's really nice. Okay, so that's card number 3, and I think I've just made it just in tough to the time for the light to basically disappear completely. Yes, we won't talk about what's happened with that ribbon. Angry about that. Anyway, so that's it. That's our card class for today. Thanks for joining me. As I say, if you are watching this on YouTube or Facebook later on, you'd like to participate in some of my classes, please reach out. I do one of these every month, and there's always something a little bit different. And as I say, something that you can do at home with just your favourite sentiments and adhesives, glue, and dimensionals or foam squares. But anyway, thanks for that. I will log off before it gets too dark to see what I'm doing. Thanks so much again, and I will talk to you all next time.